So if your interviewer asks you the question, what would your previous employer say about you? Would you know how to respond in a manner that shows that you are confident and that you would be a good possible fit for the company? Today we're going to unpack that question. What would your previous boss say about you? Don't go away. When we come back, we'll help you dive into that answer because winging it simply won't get you the job that you desire. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Get Hired. In today's episode, we are going to unpack how to respond to the interview question, what would your previous boss say to you? If you haven't met me yet, my name is Bridgetti Lim Banda from Cape Town in South Africa, and this live stream is made possible by StreamYard and Be Live Media and also your interview survival guide. So whether you're watching us over on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch, on LinkedIn, and also over on Amazon Live, a warm welcome. If you've got any questions or comments during today's show, please feel free to do so. Before I invite my two amazing co-hosts to join me, one of the things that we always do on the show is just share one or two tips for you to level up while you are live. Because a lot of interviews are still done remotely, because these days, wherever you've got the internet or can access the internet, you can be employed and work remotely. We discussed this in the very first episode of Get Hired. So if you missed that episode, please go back and look for it. So one or two of the tips that we shared in that very first episode was that when you use your phone for your interview, you want to make sure that it's steady, that it's placed on some kind of a tripod, however that tripod looks for you, but do secure your phone and make sure that it's stable. Otherwise, your hand will eventually become unstable and you'll make your interviewer seasick. If you are being interviewed, then what you would also want to do is, now I know that generally speaking, the inclination is to hold your phone in portrait mode. So what we recommend is that you turn your phone into landscape mode when you are having an interview, and that'll get rid of the two black lines that you normally will see when your phone is in portrait mode. So turn your phone in landscape, go into your settings, whether it's Android or an iPhone, go into settings, unlock it, and turn your phone into landscape mode. The other thing that we recommend is just to do a general check beforehand. Make sure that you can be heard clearly. If you can't be heard clearly, invest in a lapel microphone, especially if your job's going to be online moving forward and having meetings online. Invest in something like the Rode lavalier or a lavalier microphone that you can clip onto your jacket or your top, and that way you'll be heard well. So those are just some of the few tips that we covered in that very first episode. Please go back and have a look at that. So my two co-hosts are Aletta Rochat and Teresa Dukes. Aletta is a certified world-class speaking coach, interview coach, and a distinguished Toastmaster. She's also an author and founder of Voicing Your Potential and co-founder of the Interview Survival Guide. Aletta has trained and spoken in 22 countries and has a proven system to help you get hired. She also helps you speak like a professional so that you can get noticed, noticed and remembered. And that's an important point. Everybody wants to be remembered. So she helps you be remembered, transform your interview skills to become a preferred candidate. Teresa is a certified world-class speaking coach, best-selling author, and the co-founder of Interview Survival Guide. She's trained in excess of 30,000 people around the world in effective communication skills. So she also helps you be heard, understood, and remembered. And today, these two amazing ladies are going to help us answer the question. They're going to help you answer the question, what if your interviewer asks you, what would your previous boss say about you? So without any further ado, let me give a hearty, warm welcome to my amazing co-hosts, Aletta and Teresa. Welcome. Great to see you, ladies.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to be back again and as a trio today, I think. It's fantastic.
I know. It's lovely to be on screen with both of you again. So I think let's jump right into the gate. Aletta, I'm going to ask you to just people who's not watched the show before, just a very, very brief overview of what the interview survival guide is all about.
Thanks, Bridgetti. At Interview Survival Guide, we teach ambitious job seekers a proven system so that they can land their dream job. In other words, to put it in a nutshell, we've done the thinking, we've taken the guesswork out of interview preparation, and we teach our clients and students a way to effectively prepare for interviews. Each interview comes with potential opportunity, potential income, potential, improving your lifestyle. So the days of winging it, as I used to do, are gone. If you are really serious about your career, you will invest the time and the energy to prepare so that you can be your best self during that interview. And we help you do that.
That is phenomenal. And, I think every time we start the show, I also like to remind people that, you can no longer win it. The competition is really, really stiff out there. And so if you think that you're going to ace your interview just on hope, it's not going to happen. So today we're going to be looking at the interview question. If they ask you, what would your previous boss say about you? Now that can be a rather or it can be a potentially cringe-worthy question if you left under just even a little bit of a cloud. It can get you into hot water. Teresa, where do we start with this question, and why is it an important question to know how to answer correctly?
It's always good to know how to answer this type of question. And these are the type of questions that we consider difficult interview questions. And we actually have a guide for people to follow in order for them to know, hey, this is what I need to focus on. Because they're asking this question for a reason. They're not trying to catch you out. They're not trying to find out if you left under a cloud. What they're really trying to find out is how did you relate to your boss? How did your boss relate to you? Because if they can understand a little bit about what you were like with your previous boss, then they're going to be able to determine how they would be able to work with you in the future. So they're trying to get to know you again. And this is what goes on with an interview. It's not just them asking you a horrible question and you have to give them a stock answer. It's a chance for them to have a conversation with you. And this one kind of highlights some integrity issues, potentially. It can highlight your way of working with senior individuals or not working with senior individuals. So you really have to think hard, long and hard about what you're going to say. And I think one of the first things that I always get people to think about is think about your boss sitting in front of you and giving you an appraisal. And take away that appraisal and then put it into your own words. What did you do that was really good, your boss thought was really good? What one little improvement point do you think they might have given you so you could self-develop? And then how would you wrap up how you felt about that particular employment, not the boss, but the employment that you have been in? So that's just, I guess, the elementary approach that I would suggest at the beginning.
So it's not really, as you say, to catch you out, but it's to determine a few things about you, your personality, and how you may or may not fit into the organization. How, are there ways in which you can throw yourself under the bus by not answering this correctly?
Aletta.
Yeah. The worst thing you can do, and I mean, we've all had terrible bosses. I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that. But the worst thing you want to do is say, oh my goodness, if only you knew how terrible that boss was. That is something that will set off alarm bells in the minds of recruiters, because that suggests that you can't work with authority. It suggests that maybe you're the difficult one and you're blaming the boss. So what you absolutely want to avoid doing is blaming, naming, and shaming. That is not the purpose of this. You want to have a professional opinion. You want to have an objective opinion, and you want to be calm. You don't want to suddenly start ranting about this boss and what he or she did or didn't do. So don't fall, even if you really did dislike your previous boss, do not name and shame. It'll actually count against you in the interview because, as I say, they might perceive that you are the problem, not your boss.
And so what if you did have a bit of a personality clash with your previous boss, but you were competent? How would one approach it from that perspective, Teresa?
So we've worked with a lot of people that have had exactly that situation where they are a competent individual, but they just did not get along with that boss. The boss held them back, wouldn't let them progress and push them on. And also there was one individual I'm remembering that she actually wanted to move on because she wanted to develop. She wanted to learn some more things and get a higher paying role. But her boss loved her so much, did not want to lose her skill set, that he refused to ever give her an appraisal that would promote her to that next level, even though he knew she was fantastic, and that's why he wanted to hold on to her. So, as far as what we as individuals have to do is we have to have a really heart-to-heart conversation potentially with that employer to let them know these are my intentions. This is what I see myself, or where I see myself going in 5 years' time. That's another question we can get on to, but it's a chance for you to lay the groundwork with that employer to let them know that you are actively seeking roles that will challenge you, that will increase your ability to take on more responsibility and give you a chance to shine. Because that's what we want to know. Where do you shine? And even though you may have had this bad or a conflict or a misunderstanding with that previous boss, the important thing here is that you showcase the one skill that this new employer is looking for. So if they're looking for interpersonal communication or they're looking for analytical skills, then that's what you do. You highlight that skill instead of concentrating on the conflict or the disagreement or the misunderstanding that may or may not be there.
So here's something I thought of while I was listening to you. What about a situation where, for example, you were of well, it could work both ways. You were either of the same sex or the opposite sex, and the person didn't want to allow you to move forward in that position and is now sort of made it known that they will give you a negative review, simply to spite you. You know, those kind of things can happen. What does one do in an awkward situation like that?
I think for me, the important thing is that you come across as professional and objective. You can be honest and say, my previous employer and I had a difficult relationship because we both had different ideas as to where things should be going, or we had a difficult relationship because I was quite ambitious and there wasn't scope for me to grow in that department. So you can state that as a matter of fact without throwing someone under the bus. But what I'd like to really highlight here is put yourself in the recruiter's shoes. What would they be listening for? They're listening for someone who's aware of how a team works. They're listening for someone who is aware that sometimes people don't always get on, but can do what they can to keep the project going or the team going. They're listening to people who have a self-awareness plus an awareness of how they operate within a team, in a department, and the impact that any potential conflict or synergy have on that team or that department or project. So just helicopter up a little bit and imagine you are the recruiter and ask yourself, what would they be looking for? And as Teresa mentioned, look at the job description and highlight those aspects that they definitely need in the new role, and see how your previous experience can highlight that you have experience in those key areas that they're looking for.
So one does have an opportunity to actually turn it on its head, you know, just listening to you. I can imagine one could actually almost use it in your favor. If you said, you know, we didn't get on for this, that, or the other reason, but this is what I learned from the experience. So it's about how you phrase it. And I suppose if you were having some coaching, you'd be able to pick up on those things and be able to teach people how to turn it on its head so that it could work for them. And I liked what you said, Aletta, that you need to have a helicopter view and sort of zoom out from the actual experience so that they can see that that you won't be a potentially difficult person to work with, even if your relationship wasn't 100% fantastic at the time that you left.
Yeah.
And Bridgetti, the other thing that I want people to think about is that we could take this question the wrong way, and we may react to it emotionally, especially if we have not prepared for it. And that's what Aletta and I do. We get people to come up with the stories that are relevant to questions that they may get, and then we put them through their paces on how to answer it in the most effective way, so that you are highlighting the skill that you want them to see, that you aren't throwing that person under the bus, and that absolutely what you have done and how you have impacted the company in the work you've done, how that will also play into the impact that you will have for the company that you're going for. So it's being able to practice and unpack a very emotional question before you get it, so that you don't get caught out and you don't go, well, I didn't like that person. I don't really know if I should answer this question, right? So it's being really, really prepared. And that's what Aletta and I love to do, is get people as prepared so that they are recognized as that preferred candidate. And this is one of those questions that could definitely throw you under the bus if you haven't practiced it.
I'd just like to add to that. When you think of a difficult boss and you think of a relationship, remember that you are the curator of your own story. You don't have to tell the worst stories and the most horrible experiences. You can choose which of those relationships or which aspect of that relationship you share. So don't go for the ones that are highly emotive for you and very difficult. Choose the ones that are relevant to the job description, as Teresa said, and to those key skills they're looking for, and choose the ones that paint you in the best light. And that is not being dishonest, it's choosing which aspects of that story you're going to share in the interview. And that's completely under your control. But as Teresa said, you have to think about it ahead of time to have that perspective. It's very difficult to do that last minute in the moment. But if you can do it ahead of time and be very deliberate about what you share and why you're sharing it, and obviously the correct answer is because it's relevant to the job that you are applying for, then you can choose the right angle to showcase yourself in the best light.
And so if they were to ask you, you know, what did you learn from your experience with your previous boss, assuming it wasn't all that fantastic, what would be a good way and what would be a bad way to respond to that?
I like that. Good versus bad. I'm going to be the good cop, okay? The best way to approach any difficult or question that could potentially show conflict is to go high. It's like Michelle Obama always said, when they go low, we go high. And that's absolutely what you want to do. You want to go high with your answer. You want to be positive. You want to really dig down deep and think, what exactly did I learn from this really difficult relationship that I had, this working relationship that I had with this boss? Well, one thing I learned that I actually can work with difficult people because they didn't break me. I was still able to deliver my objectives and meet our project deadlines. But I now know how to deal with a difficult colleague. But I may also realize that there's another way that I can maintain my own emotions, and that is to sit back and breathe and relax before you answer anything. You know, I've learned patience. I've learned that before I react with fire, it's like a fire, I'm going to flame because they've upset me. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait. And I'm going to think about what I'm going to say before I react to a potential emotional situation that they may have put me in. So it's going high, going for the positive outcome that you know you've been able to accomplish, because otherwise you wouldn't be going for another job with possibly higher responsibilities. Yeah.
That sounds good. Teresa, Aletta, can you give us an example of a bad response that could throw you under the bus?
Anything that is insulting to the previous boss. You know, if you had to say something like, what I learned from the experience is to never trust someone who, and you could say it's a male or a female who has, you know, small guy syndrome, or a arrogant woman, or anything that can be perceived as an insult. Because again, the immaturity that you're displaying is that you're suggesting it's all their fault and that you had no accountability in that relationship. So never, ever, ever insult that person. Anything that you can say that would suggest that they didn't know what they were doing, that they were stupid, that they were the problem, and, you know, if only they'd listened to you, it would have been so much better. So that is just, as I say, to me, I would just immediately say, well, your people skills aren't great. You can't work with authority. You've got no manners, and you don't know how to be professional. So you may feel good saying that because you're venting from extreme frustration, and I understand that, but it's not appropriate for an interview. So you've got to become the professional in the interview who's not going to stoop so low as to be insulting towards someone who can't even defend themselves because they're not even in the room. So just be careful of that. And the times when it's difficult is when that is very emotive for you. Then you can easily slip into that kind of gut reaction. Just be considered and just say, well, you know, it was a difficult relationship. We didn't get on. We clashed as a personality, but we both worked hard at it. We tried to make it work, but there came a point when it was no longer viable and there was nowhere else for me to go. So you can just say what you need to say without insulting anyone, without being demeaning towards anyone, and without painting yourself in a negative light.
I think those are excellent pointers to work on. Teresa, did you have another thought on that?
I did. I mean, as Aletta was talking, I was sitting there thinking, there are times when we need to vent. And the time to vent is before the interview and before the question. And that's why Aletta and I love coaching people so much, because it gives them the opportunity to give us all the mess, and then we pull the magic bits out of it. And then that way they've unpacked it, they've gotten rid of their anger or their emotion, and now they have a really professional answer that they can present to that interviewer. So it's okay to vent, but with somebody who can help you through it.
And I can well imagine, that is the value in coaching, because whatever happened in that situation, you need a safe space to talk about it. And during an interview is not that safe space. It's it can be a potentially disaster. And I often wonder if that is why, because you get a lot of people who go to interview after interview after interview, and it's a year, it's 2 years, it's 3 years, and they're simply not getting a job. And you start to wonder. And as the time goes by, I think you almost, correct me if I'm wrong, ladies, you almost digress. And each interview you're doing, you'd get worse and worse and worse, because you're not aware of what you're doing wrong and how to fix it. Am I right?
Aletta.
Yeah, we've had clients like that too. I remember one of our clients had 6 interviews, no job offer. Another one kept on getting headhunted for interviews, invited to interview, but didn't get the job. And they came to us for coaching, and both of them were hired shortly after they finished our course. You don't know what you don't know, and you can't see yourself from the interviewer's perspective, and that's where the coaching comes in. And also for those people who've been in the interview game for a long time, sometimes there's an attitude you bring to an interview, like, ho hum, here we go again, let's go through the motions. But you come across as your energy level's not high. You come across as quite cynical, and you need help to get over that. And that's why interview coaching is so powerful, because it can reflect back to you what you can't see for yourself, and it can show you a better way. Teresa, do you want to add to that?
Yes, I was sitting here thinking of a couple of people that we have coached, and it's also important to remember that if you are going through this journey, and it is a journey, you have to be willing and open to accept the coaching, because there will be times when we get people who walk through our doors who absolutely want help, but they want validation more than they want education, and so they are not coachable. They'll listen to what you have to say, but then they will complain about everything that you're suggesting, and they'll say it'll never work. And that's when a coach has to realize, sometimes there are just going to be clients that need time to deal with it on their own before they come back to you ready to actually accept the education that they would want to have and improve to get that job. So yeah, it's an interesting journey Aletta and I have.
I can well imagine, because you have to do a lot of introspection to be honest enough to be teachable, because sometimes we're not, and sometimes we have other issues in our life that we haven't dealt with or are not even aware of, that may be displaying within the work situation and preventing you from getting the job that you desire. And I can't believe we out of time already. This 30 minutes went by so quickly. So Aletta, can I start with you to just give us your final comments, and then Teresa, if you can give us a final comment on how we can overcome this question.
Remember that this question, what would your previous boss say about you, is not really about you and your previous boss. It's an opportunity for you to showcase your self-awareness, your people skills, what you've learned from any situation you've been in, and it's your ability, again, to relate your experience to the job description. So it's an opportunity.
Thanks, Aletta. And Teresa, what is your final gem to leave with our audience?
So my final gem is make sure you unpack this question before you get to that interview. Uncover any sort of emotional connection you have with it, and focus on the positive, like we said. Keep it professional. When they go low, which is what you think they're doing, then you need to go high. Go professional.
That is an amazing note to leave on today. So I hope that you feel empowered. And if you've watched the show and you realize that you could benefit from some coaching, then please do reach out to Aletta and Teresa. Leave us a comment, and you can just Google Interview Survival Guide, and you'll find their website and connect with them. So thanks very much to our audience who's joined us live today. If you missed the show live and you're catching this on the replay, do watch it from the beginning. We went over some amazing points on how to answer that question. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you back on the next episode of Get Hired. Take care and stay safe, everyone.